Welcome to CWS Christian Writing and Speaking. I'm your host, Jackie Wilson, and today's guest is a songwriter, photographer, entrepreneur, and author with 4 decades of experience writing over 120 songs. He is known for his popular standard, Rachel's Song, and by his best-selling book, Touched by the Music: How the Story and Music of Rachel's Song Can Change Your Life. His soothing, relaxing music has been played millions of times worldwide and continues to touch the lives of millions of people all over the world. Let's welcome to the CWS stage, Mr. Dave Combs. Dave, we're so excited to have you on today's program, and we have to hear your story.
Well, thank you, Jackie, for inviting me. This has been something I've looked forward to since we first connected. So we're going to have a wonderful time together and have a great conversation and let the folks out there just eavesdrop and listen in on it.
All right. So, Dave, everybody knows that you are a phenomenal musician, but I want to know, how did you even start down this road?
Well, I guess it started even way before I was born. I was born in a family that loved music. Even my grandma Combs, my father's mother, she was born in 1894. She loved music. She could sing. She was only 4'8", tiny little woman, but boy, she was feisty and a hard worker. Both my parents were raised on farms in Southwest Virginia. But my Granny Combs, she could make some music. My earliest memories of my grandma Combs, she would play, and she loved playing this instrument. And this is her instrument that she gave to me after she passed away. It's her auto harp. And I can just hear her playing this thing and singing Amazing Grace and all those wonderful old hymns that she loved to play, And Mother Maybelle Carter, I think, was the one that really made this a prominent instrument in the day. It's so easy to play. You just push a button and strum it, and it's a beautiful instrument. So that was my beginnings, were around music all my life. My mother and father both played the piano. My father played by ear, and I was in the Baptist church there in Irwin, Tennessee, Calvary Baptist. I grew up with a wonderful choir singing and organ and piano duets. And, when you're a little kid and you're around that Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night prayer meeting, all those times. And when I got old enough to sing in the choir, man, my voice changed to where I could sing in the choir. That was great. So music has been a big part of my life since the very beginning. And I had no idea, though, back then, that my life would be completely around music eventually. Because I started my life out as a computer programmer for a big company, Western Electric, part of the Bell system, and AT&T, and I was a computer programmer, math major, physics minor, so technology was my thing. But I still love music. I volunteered and sang in the university choir in college, and I was the minister of music at my home church in Irwin for the last 2 years of my college there, and I was minister of music for 2 years at a small church here near Winston-Salem after I came to work for Western Electric. So music has been a part of my life separate from my corporate life. And all that changed in 1981. I sat down at my piano, which you see right behind me here, and in the evenings when I would come home from work, playing the piano was how I would relax. I'd get the hymn book out and play favorite hymns, or I'd just make something up or just mess around on the piano. Or turn the radio on, try to play along with something on the radio. Anyway, piano was my way of relaxing. Well, that particular evening, I sat down and I started playing a song. And your folks there in Nashville, where you are, the songwriters will appreciate this. Sometimes you don't even know you're writing a song when you are. You sit down and you play a song that is inspired. It's a gift to you. Well, that evening, I played this song completely through. Beautiful. I loved it. It sounded great. I didn't think much about it. A couple of days later, my wife Linda comes home from work and she says, "Dave, what is the name of this song that I had stuck in my head all day long?" You know how you get a song, an earworm stuck in there and you're humming it all day. She hummed a little bit of it, and I said, well, Linda, it doesn't have a name. And she said, what? You play it all the time on the piano. I said, well, it's just something I made up. So she got all excited and she said, well, Dave, have you written it down? I said, well, no, I'm not going to forget it. I've got it up here. She said, no, something might happen to you and that song would be gone. So you better write it down. So, yes, ma'am. So I did. I wrote it down, the melody and the chords on a piece of paper and stuck it in my piano bench. 2 years later, some good friends of ours had a little baby girl named Rachel. And they asked Linda, her parents asked Linda and me to be her godparents. And so at little Rachel's christening service, Linda and I are sitting there. It's just the family and us and the minister. And up in the front of the church is a beautiful baby grand piano sitting right in the middle of the platform.
Wow.
And so I kept looking at that piano. And at the end of the service, I punched Linda and I said, hey, what do you think about me playing this song now that we could never come up with a name for? And it seems like it's the right time to play it. Okay. So I went and asked the family and the minister if it'd be okay if I played a tune on the piano. So everybody sat back down. And I went over to the piano and sat down and I played this song. And I played it and got most of the way through it. And I kept hearing out in the crowd clearing their throat and little sniffles here and there, you know. And I noticed that I was getting some tears coming down my cheeks. Well, if you've ever been to a baby christening service, you know how precious and tender those services can be. It doesn't take much to get a tear out of your eye anyway. Well, this music just turned on the tear ducts, apparently. Well, at the end of the song, I looked up and there's little Rachel in the arms of her mother. And I said, from now on, this song will be called Rachel's Song in her honor. And Jackie, that's how the song got its name. And that was, I thought, well, this is wonderful. Now the song at least has a name. And roll the calendar forward about 3 years. I was doing a lot of traveling with my job at AT&T, Western Electric. And one of the places that I was having to work all week long, cutting over some new software, was at the AT&T plant in Nashville, Tennessee. And you probably know exactly where it is. It's an old building. The building's still there, but it's not AT&T anymore. But anyhow, that was where I was having to work. Linda says, well, while you're in Nashville, why don't you go and get a professional recording made of Rachel's song, you know, a demo recording. I said, okay. So I wasn't sure exactly how to do that, but I knew I could find somebody that would. So one evening I'm driving around Nashville and I'm over in the part of town that you're familiar with called Music Square. It's about 2 or 3 square blocks of BMI headquarters, ASCAP and RCA Studios, Country Music Hall of Fame. You know, everything in that area is music. And I'm driving down Roy Acuff Place. It's a little side street named after Roy Acuff, the well-known and loved musician there in Nashville. And at the end of the street, here's this big building, has a rooftop like a barn, and then out the front on the street side, it has this big water wheel, like they had moved it from a real, you know, water mill someplace, or a mill. And on the side of the building, it said, the music mill. And so I thought, okay, this is it. So I pulled around the corner, pulled in the parking lot, looked in the door, and sure enough, there was a man sitting in the lobby of the building. Knocked on the door, and he unlocks it and comes and opens it and says, hi, I'm George Clinton. Can I help you? And I said, sure. And now it's not the same George Clinton everybody's thinking. There's a lot of George Clintons in the world, but this was the recording engineer in Nashville that much loved. When he passed away a few years ago, the Nashville newspaper did a full-page spread on George Clinton. He was that loved by the music community. But anyway, George invites me into the room. And I told him I was looking for a studio, and he said, well, come on in. And I looked around. On the left on the wall was a great big life-size picture of Glenn Campbell. And right in front of me was a big life-size big picture of Alabama, the group Alabama, and the Forrester sisters. And there was gold records and platinum records on the walls everywhere. This was obviously a classy place. So I told George, I said, well, I've never been in a studio before. And he said, no problem. He said, you're lucky. Nobody is recording right now. So let me take you on a tour of Studio A, our showcase studio over here. Takes me in the big room, and You could fit an orchestra in that room. It was huge. Over in the corner was a big 9-foot concert grand piano, and it just huge room. And he said, let's go in the control room where all the magic happens. So he opens this thick door, about 8 inches thick, 6 or 8 inches thick, soundproof door. And open it up, it's heavy. And we go inside, and there is this console. It must have been 8 feet long. It had, I think I later found out it had like 32 tracks on the console, sliders and switches and lights and cables, and it was impressive. And around the wall were recording machines and huge monitor speakers mounted on the wall, so you could hear the music beautifully. I said, George, I believe you could launch a spaceship from this room. It looks really impressive. How much does a room like this cost? He says, well, it's $125 an hour plus engineer. And I thought, wow, that's pretty steep. Now, this was 1986, and $125 an hour back then would be probably over $400 an hour now. So it was expensive. And I guess he saw how disappointed I was at the cost. He said, oh, don't worry about it. The fellow who owns this studio owns a little studio across the street, and it's $15 an hour. And I said, okay, I can handle that. So, okay, George, now all I need is a musician to play my song. He thought for a second. He said, I know just the person. He said, let me go back to my desk and look up his phone number for you. His name is Gary Prim, P-R-I-M. And he is a wonderful session musician. He and I go to church together, Sunday school together. He said, we're just a wonderful person. He'll do a great job for you. So he went back and looked up his phone number, wrote it on a piece of paper, and I hightailed it back to the hotel so I could call Gary. Now, this was 1986. Cell phones had not been invented yet. The internet had not been invented yet. So it was landlines only. So I had to call Gary on my landline from my hotel room. Called him up, got his answering machine. 30 minutes later, he calls me back. Hi, this is Gary Prim. Can I help you? Absolutely. I told him what I was looking for to record a demo of a song that George Clinton said he'd be glad to do for me. And he said, absolutely. What do I need to send you, Gary? And he says, well, just send me a recording of you playing Rachel's song and send me a lead sheet. And I said, well, fine, but Gary, what is a lead sheet? I know the lingo of the music business. Now, of course, I know what a lead sheet is now, but back then I didn't. He said, oh, it's no problem. It says just the melody and the chords written on a piece of paper. I said, well, I have that. I just didn't know to call it a lead sheet. So, great. So I went back home, sent him the tape and the lead sheet in the mail, and 2 weeks later, on Friday night, August the 22nd, 1986, at 6 p.m., I met Gary Prim at this tiny little studio across the street from the Music Mill. And that was the first time I laid eyes on Gary. He was a friendly fellow, about my height, very trim, nice, really nice young man. I think he was wearing a baseball cap, which he likes to do, and he's just great young man. And he was probably in his late 20s, and here I was in my 30s, and so we just hit it off. Well, he comes in and he sets up his synthesizer, and then he sits at the piano, starts warming up, and I'm in the control room with the engineer. And so Gary says, all right, I'm ready to record. So we push record in the control room, and Gary starts playing my song. Now remember, I had never heard my music played by anybody else but me. So I wasn't sure what I was going to hear. I just knew it was probably going to be better than I could do. Well, I couldn't believe my ears. What he was playing sounded as good as anything I'd ever heard on the radio, and it was just amazing. And when he got through with the piano part, he said, and I would have been happy if he stopped right there, I'd have been happy. He says, nope, Dave, I've got some more things I want to do for the song to make it really special. So I said, okay. So he said, I want to add some electric piano along with the acoustic piano. I'm going to double the piano. So we add 2 more tracks of electric piano. He puts his headset on and listens to the first part of it while he's playing the keyboard. Played the electric piano part. He says, now this song needs some bottom and some top. I'm going to put some low strings in there. So 2 more tracks. So he records some low strings sound from his synthesizer. High strings. 2 more tracks from the synthesizer to record the high strings. And in the middle of the song, he said, I think I need to put some horns in here to give it a little punch there in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Because one thing he did that I wasn't expecting was that he played the verse and the chorus twice, and then he instantly transposed it up a half a step from C to C sharp. And the effect was really dramatic. It was a very up, it just kind of raised the energy level of the song. Really fantastic. Well, we got all that finished. He comes into the control room and we listen to it. And he says, yep, I like it. That's perfect. And I said, it's more than perfect. It is fantastic. And I'm totally in awe of what I'm hearing. So I wrote him a check for the agreed upon amount he was going to charge, and he left. And I did not know whether I'd ever see that young man again or not. But it turns out that Gary and I would, over the years, go back into the studio and record over 170 songs, 14 albums worth, and we have become like family. He and his wife, they have two wonderful kids that I've got to see the privilege of seeing them grow up, and now they're fine young adults and both fantastic people. And so Gary and Julie and his family are just like family. And the music that we've made over the years has touched so many millions of people's lives that's what we're going to talk about today, is how my music has really touched people's lives all over the world. And even though my music is instrumental, there's no words, I have numerous notes and letters that have come back to me over the years that tell me that my music, they say, Dave, you have to be a Christian. I feel it in your music. So I think the beauty of Christian beliefs and so forth can come through music, whether it has words or not. And so my music has blessed many, many thousands and millions of people, to the point where I've gotten letters and notes from over 50,000 people about my music. And that's really why I wrote my book. My book is called Touched by the Music. And these people all wrote to me to tell me how my music had touched their lives. And chapter 21 of my book is full of selected notes and letters from these people that told me, went to the trouble to track me down and write me a letter to tell me how much my music had touched their lives. Here's one that's a person, that Shirley, that says, you've been listening to my Rachel song since she purchased it, and I've never heard anything any more beautiful. And as a Christian, there is no doubt in my mind that this music is indeed inspired. And that was from Shirley. I'm not sure where she is or where she didn't know me and I didn't know her, but she sure connected through my music. Here's another one from Carol that says, you have a real gift of talent from God. Your music is so special. It spoke to my soul. Thank you so much. And then there's another one here that he gave me a lot of quotes. This is a family from Illinois. One of them, it says, it sounds so much, sounds like breathing, like the breath of God. And then let's see, and being lifted a little higher with each breath. Surely this music is of the Lord. And that was, I really thought that was fantastic. And then here's another one from Larry. It says, I would like to let you know how much your music has ministered to my heart. I find it beautiful, peaceful, and spiritually uplifting. Thank you for using your God-given talents to minister to others. God bless you. And no one says, God bless you for the comfort and repose your music provides us in our stressful moments. Your music is holy, God-graced, peaceful, instills security, and provides repose. And it just goes on and on. I mean, when you get letters like that in the mail every day and from people, it's affirming and confirming that you're doing the right thing. And even when I was trying to decide when I was going to quit my job at AT&T, which was a big decision. When you're working for a corporation for over 22 years, a nice salary and big benefits and everything, it's a big step, a leap of faith to say, okay, am I going to leave that behind and go do what I feel my calling is, to produce and write music? That week that I made that decision, I had gotten a letter from one man, and all it said was one sentence. It just said, Dave Combs, writing and producing music is what God put you on this planet to do. And he signed his name. And at that point, I was sitting in church, Jackie, and you probably have experienced this too. Sometimes we pray for guidance and signs that we're doing the right thing. Lord, give me something to let me know I'm doing the right thing. And I was sitting there in church trying to decide, when will I know that it's the right time to quit my job and do my music? And I realized that letter came to my mind, or across my mind, and I thought to myself, I smiled to myself, because I said, Lord, you must think I am dense and hard to communicate with, because here you've sent me all these letters over the weeks and time, and this letter this week. And I thought I was going to expect, lightning to strike and thunder to roll and bushes to burn and all these kind of signs. No, the Lord speaks to us through other people. Mm. And that feedback from other people, if you listen and stay attuned, that is the Lord speaking to you. So after I realized that I had already gotten my confirmation from the Lord through all these letters and notes from people saying, hey, this is what you're supposed to do, I was at ease. I was comfortable with my decision. That Monday morning, I got lunch with my boss at a restaurant, and I handed him my letter of resignation and said, Bill, I'm sorry, I can't afford to work here anymore. I got to go do what God wants me to do. And he said, amen, brother. He said, I wish I could do it with you, but I've got to stay here and work. But so that's how I ended up making my decision to quit my job. And it's still, I remember it like it was yesterday.
And I think you've given so many different golden nuggets in what you've already said. I mean, gosh, first of all, we got to look at, sometimes we think when we're looking for our calling that it is supposed to be, like you said, all these things, these big things that are happening. But I think about how God spoke to the prophet, and how sometimes it's just in a whisper. It's not in all these big things that we're looking for, but he's speaking to us, even just feeding us. And look, your journey took multiple years. I mean, what you were doing, you felt like it was just something to relax with. And a lot of times we think that the hobbies that we have, the things that we like to do, they're so small, but all the time God is planting these seeds to build us up until the time we're ready to bloom and fully embrace what he has for us. I think it's an absolutely wonderful story. Just the transitions of it all, and how he placed people in your life to help you in the journey. And then when you were really ready, and you start seeking him and saying, okay, God, what do you want me to do? Then he was like, here it is. And then he sent you exactly what you needed so that you could move forward. And I myself have made the jump, the transition from, because I was in the legal field, and now I'm focusing on these specific things that God has me focusing on. And sometimes it can be scary, but when you do, your life is so fulfilled. I'll never, take anything away from what I did before. The training is all helpful now. But I look at you and I just think about all the skills that you probably gained along the way that may be helpful to you now. I mean, I just hope the audience is really hearing everything that you have said, but just a wonderful message. Okay, here I am, God, I'm ready to go. Let me know. And then you made that transition. It's a wonderful story.
Well, thank you. In my book, I referred a lot of places to what I call God winks. Now, I did not come up with that term. That term came from this gentleman. His name is Squire Rushnell. He wrote a little book called When God Winks, and I recommend it as reading to anybody. It doesn't take long to read it, but it's all these stories about the things that happen to people that when you look back on them, that was no accident that you met that person in that street corner that day, or you bumped into them at the restaurant, or certain things that happened to you in your life. Those are God winks. And in some of my cases, I think some of mine are God shouts. I mean, they really are amazing. So I describe those in my book. And I've got about, I think, over 70 stories in my book about my journey. And many of those involve those God winks where something just connects, being at the right place at the right time with the right people, and being connected with those people like Gary Prim or meeting George Clinton. What are the odds that's the place I stopped? What are the odds that Gary Prim is the one that he introduced me to? And so on and so forth. It's all those things that, in looking back, they changed my life. The course of my life changed when I met that person. And it's just amazing how, if you stay attuned to that and listen and be sensitive to those directions and have faith and move forward. And another thing that I found too is you need to take action. When you have a feeling and a strong drive to do something, and you have a gift, whether it's to sing, play, or speak, or write, or whatever your gift is, or just being a very kind person, that's a gift. You need to take action on that. Don't keep it to yourself. You have got to get that gift out from under that light, out from under the bushel, and let it shine for the whole world. And that's what I'm trying to do with my music even today. Yeah, I'd like to sell a lot of books, but selling books is not my objective here. My objective is to spread the message of my music and the blessing that it will give people around the world. Millions of people have already heard Rachel's song and my other music, but there are billions of people who have not. And my mission is to, through these podcasts and every way I can possibly do it, I want to spread the word and spread my music around the world, because I know from those 50,000 letters that I got from people, if you listen to my music and really listen to it in the right environment, it will bless your life. And in some cases, it will provide you with strength and healing and peace and all kinds of good things. And I know that because it does that for me as well. So that's really my mission here. And God has blessed me with a talent to write beautiful melodies, and He's blessed me with a good, wonderful friend, Gary Prim, who plays beautiful music and records it beautifully. And now we have the technology through the internet, where anybody watching this podcast, after we're finished, don't do it right now, can go to my website and basically instantly have access to my music. You can go right to my homepage, and right in the middle of my homepage says Play Rachel's Song right now. And it will be the actual recording that I had recorded by Gary in that studio. It's never been remastered, never been remixed. That is what I heard that day in August of 1986 in the studio. You hear it too now, the same as I did. And I think now that I've described it for you, you'll probably hear some of those little subtleties that I described in the recording process. But it is a beautiful thing to be able to share my music with the world through the technology that we have today.
Amen. Now, tell people how to connect with you. You mentioned your website.
It's very simple, just my last name, Combs, C-O-M-B-S, music.com, combsmusic.com. And you'll find all the links for anything else you might want to do once you get there. On the left side of the page, you'll see a picture of the cover of my book. And underneath it'll be a link that says the purchase from Amazon.com. You click that and it'll take you right to my book page on Amazon, where you can either get a paperback book or an ebook for a Kindle book, or you can listen to me read it to you on Audible for 8 hours. If you like my East Tennessee country accent, you can just listen to me talk to you for 8 hours. And then on the other side of my homepage, you'll see a picture of my CD. And underneath it will be a link that will take you to Amazon.com and for the CD page. And you can either buy the CD, the physical CD, or you can download the music. Or if you're an Amazon Music subscriber, you can stream the music from there. And so either book or the music. And right in the middle, right where my face is, if you're watching this on a video, is the link that says Play Rachel's Song. So click that and you'll hear the actual recording of Rachel's song. And I think there's even the capability, if you want to download it on your computer, you can do that too. And then there are other links, of course, at the top of the page you can go to and read about me or read about Gary Prim and all the other things, or watch other podcasts I've appeared on, or you can actually read the article I wrote in Guidepost Magazine, 1994. This little magazine went out to 2 million people and generated over 10,000 responses that I got in the mail and the phone in less than 2 weeks. I had to hire two ladies to help me answer the phone because it was ringing constantly, my 800 number, once this magazine hit the street. And then my mailman came bringing my mail in a canvas bag too heavy to pick up. I heard from over 10,000 people in less than 2 weeks just because of this little article in the magazine. So anyway, and the article is reprinted on my website as well, so you can read it too. But that's how you get a hold of me, combsmusic.com. And there's an email address at the bottom, dave@combsmusic.com. Write me an email. I love to hear from people, and I write them all back, and I read them all. So let me hear from you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. Again, just a wonderful story of how God is working in people's lives. Like you said, these God winks, these chance, what we think are chance encounters of people, and actually it's God steering us on a path to where He really wants us to be. Thank you so much for being here. CWS audience, you heard it. Spread the word about this interview with Mr. Combs. It has just been absolutely wonderful. And until next time, God bless.